The Man Who Laughs, the Forgotten Universal Classic by Dark Kona's Reviews. Very interesting. So this is not obviously this list gives me Joker vibes. It's not the Joker, but it gives me Joker vibes. Also, like, reminds me of the Batman Who Laughs, which is, very fun. Also, please consider liking and subscribing. I appreciate it. We'll jump in. I don't know what to expect, but I think I might be expecting something.
Today, 1928's The Man Who Laughs is best known as the inspiration for one of popular culture's most famous faces. Created by Bill Finger, Jerry Robinson and Bob Kane.
So it is the inspiration for the Joker came from this movie. Interesting. Some clown horror vibe. Technically, yeah.
And a screen favourite from Cesar Romero to Joaquin Phoenix, the origin of Batman's The Joker was a picture of Conrad Veidt as Gwynplaine in the silent melodrama. But this is only the tip of the iceberg. Though not a horror film itself, The Man Who Laughs was a converging point of horror talent of the past and future. A legacy that has sometimes overshadowed the brilliant.
Yeah, it does look very close. Yeah, it does definitely resemble the Joker, or reverse. The Joker resembles him. Yeah, I get it. I see it. I see it. Yeah.
Of one of the most unusual films of its time. There are conflicting versions of the cinematic origins of The Man Who Laughs, but it began with The Hunchback of Notre Dame. The success of that film set Universal Studios hunting for another vehicle for star Lon Chaney. Like Hunchback, The Man Who Laughs had a disfigured protagonist and was based on a novel by Victor Hugo. It seemed perfect, but the studio didn't have the
Victor Hugo, okay. 1928, okay.
rights, so attention switched to The Phantom of the Opera. By the time Universal returned to The Man Who Laughs, Chaney was signed to MGM, leaving Universal with a major problem. Chaney was a one-off, the only actor who specialised in this sort of role. At least in America. German actor Conrad Veidt had first come to the attention of Hollywood playing Cesare the Somnambulist in Robert Wiener's expressionist horror The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. He was brought to the US by star John Barrymore to play the villain in 1927's The Beloved Rogue, and seemed an ideal Chaney substitute for the dual role of Lord Clancharlie, tortured
Dollar Store Chaney. I'm doing good. Is my video in the list? Yeah, it will be the first one, the next one after this one. Interesting. So he's basically it was a dollar store Chaney because they didn't have Chaney anymore, so they needed a replacement. Interesting.
To death by the corrupt James II and his son, Gwynplaine, who is handed over to a group of gypsies called Comprachicos, who surgically mutilate children into sideshow attractions, slicing the young Gwynplaine's face into a permanent grin. Better yet, Veidt already knew Universal's chosen director. Paul Lenny had first directed Veidt in 1918's The Mystery of Bangalore, and most notably in Waxworks, the film that got him noticed in the US. Here,
interesting. John Barrymore, the father of that little girl from E.T. Ah, interesting. I gotta say, some of these costumes are very interesting. I have to say, some of these costumes are very interesting. But crazy. Like this one, for example. Looks interesting.
Ivan the Terrible, played by Veidt, goes to visit his torture chamber, a scene mirrored in The Man Who Laughs when King James goes to visit his. Incidentally, Laney's film influenced Russian director Sergei Eisenstein when he came to make his own Ivan the Terrible in the 40s, and starred William Dieterle, who would go on to direct the 1939 Hunchback of Notre Dame. Laney had started as an art director, working with directors like Ernst Lubitsch and Michael Curtiz, and as a director, he carried over.
Why is it so blue? Why is it so blue? Who put this one into blue? Why is it so blue? No, it's Paul. Is it Lenny? Lenai? Lenny? I have no idea, bro. Even the guy can say the name right. I can't either. Also, I mean, these are old movies, so obviously that have an old school style. That just makes sense.
Over that visual sensibility. But, crucially, he was also highly adaptable, working comfortably within the studio system that crushed so many of his contemporaries, marrying elements of expressionist style to the more commercial Hollywood product. His US debut, The Cat and the Canary, was a comedy horror, the prototype for the Old Dark House film, and in fact a major influence on James Whale's The Old Dark House, made just 5 years later. The film introduced Laney to cinematographer Gilbert Warrenton and art director Charles D. Hall, both of whom would stay with him for The Man Who Laughs, making a huge contribution to the atmosphere of both films, with Hall repurposing sets from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. A section of cathedral, for example, seems to have become King James's bedroom. Fantastic.
Yeah, so I recognize this. Interesting. I mean, see, I guess it's just to save money, right? Which is a smart use, right? Why just see, the problem is like you make props for like a movie, right? And then like, or scenes and sets and shit, and then you just like discard it, and it's just like the money's just like now wasted because like you did just like a one-time thing and that's it. Smart use. I guess smart use. Poke is a German. Then it would be Leni or Lenny. One of the two. Depends on how you say it. Old movies like this give such cool vibe. Most of horror was so goofy. That's true. The horror was a little goofy.
Mystical bedrooms clearly appealed to Laney, but while in Waxworks he occasionally uses art direction for its own sake, in The Man Who Laughs it is an integral part of the storytelling. The Cat and the Canary was a hit, as was Laney's next film, The Chinese Parrot, originally set to star Conrad Veidt and now sadly lost. So Universal felt confident in trusting the director with one of their super jewel productions, boasting $1 million budget, big for any studio at the time and huge for the cut-price Universal.
Isn't it insane? Right back then, like you needed $1 million, right? $1 million to make like a top of the top movie, and now it's like 200 million, 300 million, and it's like, oh, won't even break even. Yay! Wonderful waste of money. It's just like very interesting. I wonder if they burned money like that back then as well, because now they're certainly doing it.
If the stress told on Laney, then he did not show it, and everyone involved seems to have had fond memories of the shoot. Veidt saying, "I have rarely had such a satisfying experience," despite the director's idiosyncrasies. Interviewed by Kevin Brownlow, Gilbert Warrenton recalled that during a take, Laney would signal his actors using a 3-foot Chinese symbol that he banged to get a reaction out of them. Although Veidt was the most crucial piece of casting, top billed was Mary Philbin, playing heroine Dia. Discovered by the young Gwynplaine in one of the film's most memorable scenes, the blind girl grows up devoted to her saviour. Philbin had played Christine Daae in The Phantom of the Opera and may have been...
Okay, that makes sense, yeah. The movie came out in 1928, just at the end of the silent era. Yeah. Interesting. Well, then this one certainly had to lock in
top bills to reinforce the connection between the films. Gwynplaine and Dia are cared for by Ursus, played by Cesare Gravina, who had small roles in both Hunchback and Phantom, as well as appearing with Lon Chaney in The Penalty. And he is excellent as the showman philosopher, who turns the pair into a carnival act. a setting that recalls Laney's waxworks, which had in turn been inspired by Caligari. The villain of the piece is courtier Barkilphedro, played by Brandon Hurst, who, once again, had been in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, playing the equally villainous Jahan. In Hugo's novel, Barkilphedro is a servant who has risen to be an influential courtier. In the film, though he has the same...
They took a lot of actors from The Hunchback. I guess that movie was successful, so I guess it made sense to just use actors from that movie also because, like, recognizable, right? These people are recognizable, so it makes sense. It was very hard to make movies back then based on how editing was and cutting. Yeah, literally, like, cutting the film and then, like, gluing it together and, like, crazy shit and stuff. Like, it's interesting how far we've come. Now any moron can edit and cut videos and shit of these movies. Terrifying because of how different that time was. Yeah, kinda. Nah.
rise to power, he is introduced as James II's jester, making him a dark mirror of the innocent Gwynplaine. Neither man's smile is real. For all the talent involved, The Man Who Laughs presented serious problems as a Hollywood blockbuster. Hugo's novel is a long, searing attack on aristocratic privilege. Condensing it into a romantic melodrama required surgery comparable to what the gypsies did to Gwynplaine, and if you look, you can see the scars.
Why do you always draw away from an Ursa speaks of marriage? Ah yes, marriage, a fun concept. Disney reused the same actors and actress in their old movies. Yeah, makes sense though. To be fair, again, it makes sense that you would reuse the same people. I mean, sometimes you have just to hire. Like, I mean, Hollywood now does it well, right? As well, right? There's the same people over and over again, right? It's like, oh, we need an action hero. Well, like, we need somebody for like an action hero. Hey, The Rock. How about that guy? Or like Chris Hemsworth, or like Chris Pratt, or like who else is still there who else is like a younger guy that's still in business? The guy that plays the new Spider-Man, Peter Parker. The new one. Since like after Andrew Garfield, right? It's just like, oh, we need this guy.
Unlike the heroines in Phantom or Hunchback, Deer always loves Gwynplaine, so he has nothing to win. Deer is never in physical danger as Esmeralda is in Hunchback, so Gwynplaine also has nothing to save her from. Eric, the Phantom of the Opera, is a killer, but still sympathetic because he is rejected by the woman he loves, owing to his accursed ugliness. Gwynplaine rejects the woman he loves, and who loves him despite his ugliness, to actively pursue another woman. On paper, Gwynplaine is unsympathetic, Deer is uninteresting, and the story follows two people who have no obstacles to overcome except those they create for themselves. On paper, the story has none of the potential of The Hunchback of Notre Dame or The Phantom of the Opera. But on screen, the quality of the filmmaking raises it above both. Partly,
I love a good romance. I love a good romance, right? Giggly cute ones. I don't know if this one is giggling cute, but like he doesn't seem to be much of like a special person in this movie, so like maybe it is.
this is due to Veidt's performance. Gwynplaine's ugliness is not about shock value, it has determined who he is. He has been stared at, pointed at and laughed at every day of his life, leaving him with no sense of self-worth. His posture seems shrunken, as if he wishes the world would swallow him. So we understand why he does not consider himself worthy of Deer. Most effective is Veidt's habit of hiding his mouth, principally from Deer, but also as a nervous gesture, something he does when he is anxious, underscoring the idea that his behaviour is defined by his deformity. The makeup was created by Jack Pierce and consisted of a set of dentures with metal hooks that pulled back the corners of the actor's mouth.
That must have been hell uncomfortable, right? That must have been also like really straining to the face. Like I think bro was happy at the end of after like each shooting when he would like got the shit removed, right? I think he was probably very happy. I'm assuming my man was very happy. But yeah, that must have been very uncomfortable to have that on the entire time.
Not dissimilar to the technique used by Lon Chaney for London After Midnight. To differentiate their star from Chaney and get some easy publicity, Universal claimed that Veidt did not use makeup, but simply had a very expressive face. In reality, the makeup was extremely uncomfortable, and using it day.
Yeah, I can imagine. I expected this to be a horror movie when I watched it, but it's more of a romance with a scary-looking man. Yeah. It is very apparent. It is very apparent. But yikes, that must have been. Yeah, that is interesting. Of course, uncomfortable makeup. I'm not surprised, right? Like the constant smiling, that must be uncomfortable. Just like when probably still not as uncomfortable as having your legs tied back, right? So it looks like some stumps and it's like really tightly squeezed to the point where blood flow has to be massaged in again.
After day left Veidt's skin stretched and aching. But despite being held in a permanent grin, Veidt's Gwynplaine is still expressive. He is wistful, torn between his love for Dia and shame in his ugliness. And, occasionally, genuinely happy. By contrast, Mary Philbin was a somewhat limited actor, but, fortunately, the part of Dia required little more than blind devotion. Recognising that this
It's like always like the ugly dude and the pretty woman. Where's the ugly woman and the pretty dude? When does that happen? Ah, yes, right. That does happen. Anyways, that does happen IRL. This one only happens in movies. Huh. Anyways, send on Discord. Yeah, I've seen it. Kind of horrendous, honestly. Yeah, you could not show this. You could definitely not show this.
This was dramatically uninteresting. Laney and screenwriter J. Grubb Alexander gave more screen time to the sensational Duchess Josiana, who gets this censor-baiting introduction. And the suggestion of dominant sexuality does not stop there. Played by Olga Baklanova, Josiana is a vital shot of energy into the first half of the film, picking her dreary fiancé's pocket, getting changed in her carriage like a teenager sneaking out to a club.
Yeah, bro's like, she's like, yeah, get away, you stinky man. Ew, stop sniffing my feet. The feet bros were happy with this one.
And playing hooky from court, making a powerful enemy in the shape of Josephine Crowell's magnificent Queen Anne. To some degree, Josiana also represents a modern 1920s audience. At Southwark Fair, she sees Gwynplaine's performance, and her ghoulish fascination mirrors our own. Here, Veidt gives us Gwynplaine at his ugliest, playing up for the crowd, grinning while we know he is dying inside. This encounter is the film's inciting incident, as Josiana sends a note to Gwynplaine asking to meet him. To keep on the right...
Wait, let me read that. Hold up. Hold up. Let me read that. I am she who did not laugh, I think. Was it pity or was it love? My page will meet you at midnight. Interesting.
To keep on the right side of Hollywood morality, the film makes it clear that, while Gwynplaine loves Dia, he does not feel he can inflict himself on her, as she does not know how ugly he is. But if a woman like Josiana can love him, Then he can marry Dia.
If such a thing is possible, then I have the right to marry... The right? I mean, you can, but like, I have the right to marry Dia. Interesting, poker, think about it. Without this movie, Joker 2 wouldn't exist, but yet then all the other Joker wouldn't exist, so like, it's a small price to pay. All the other variations of Joker, it's a small price to pay for salvation. But yeah, I wish Joker 2 wouldn't exist.
So he's doing it all for her. It's a flimsy justification, and while the titles say one thing, the direction and performances at least hint that Gwynplaine has a less noble motivation. This is the crux of the film, tugging the audience in different directions. Gwynplaine is doing the wrong thing and knows it, but he's never been in this situation with a woman before. Doesn't he deserve it?
A woman has seen my face, yet may love me. Adorable. Yeah, it's fine. It's not that deep. I'll be real. I don't care. I've seen worse.
Although to this point, Baklanova has grabbed our attention more than Philbin, to Josiana, this is just another seduction. Gwynplaine's ugliness and arousing novelty for a bored woman. While to Dia...
Boys. Never stick your dick in crazy. This one's crazy. Don't do it. Where's Dia? Go back to her. She has a dog. The other one is just a woman.
He is everything. How can we not sympathise? What resolves this is perhaps the film's masterstroke. The use of laughter as a scourge again takes us back to Lon Chaney and MGM's masterful "He Who Gets Slapped."
The man who laughs, he who gets slapped. I still think this is crazy, right? Man gets slapped, turns into a clown immediately. What a crazy trauma response. You get slapped and the first thing you do is hit up a circus and become a clown.
Of all the cinematic sleights of hand used to make the unbalanced plot dramatic, Gwynplaine's horror of being laughed at is the best. For a silent film, it's perfect because it's visual, but it's also very believable of a character who has been laughed at his entire life. As the plot moves into court politics, Gwynplaine remains the tool of others' amusement, the most ridiculous husband the Queen can inflict on Josiana. So, the worst thing that can happen to Gwynplaine is that he ends up rich, powerful, and married to a woman he was attracted to. Doesn't seem like a major threat. But this outcome dooms him to be laughed at. And the film has done such a good job of building that psychological...
I mean... See, the worst thing is actually, in this situation, is actually being married to a woman that he doesn't love, right? Attraction does not mean love, right? He loves Dia, not the other chicks, so, like, it doesn't really make sense here to say that, like, the worst thing is, like, getting married to a woman he's attracted to.
...threat that by this point... it seems a terrible fate, as well as separating him from Dia. In the wrong hands, silent melodrama can be heavy and plodding, but Laney presents inner torment via striking visual action. When Ursus is led to believe that Gwynplaine is dead, he tries to keep the news from Dia, faking the nightly performance. So a moment of romantic tragedy plays like an action set piece, bolstered for contemporary audiences by the novelty of sound effects. When the illusion is shattered, it comes like a death. The hunchbacked Quasimodo and Eric the Phantom may have had more physical obstacles to overcome, but Gwynplaine triumphs over himself as well as his circumstances. It's notable that when he berates the...
He protests. Interesting.
House of Lords, he no longer feels the need to hide his mouth. And again, Laney makes this a visually heroic victory, leading into the big finale that audiences had come to expect from Universal's period epics. Needless to say, the chase scene through
Dad. So, first of all, yeah, interesting chase scene. He runs away, but that is not how glass behaves. That is not how glass behaves. Bro ran through that glass like it was paper.
the streets of London, pursued by the Royal Guard, was not drawn from Hugo, but it feels earned. While Quasimodo and Eric fought against the mob, the people come to Gwynplaine's aid, now seeing themselves embodied in him, the little man against the might of the establishment. The energy of the sequence is fueled by Gwynplaine's desperate search for Dear, now realising that love has been there all along. But is he too late? The Man Who Laughs was released as a silent, but was then pulled and re-released with sound effects and a synchronised score, including the one element of the film that has aged badly.
Her singing, interesting. Yeah, forgot the Subnautica two Subnautica games. That's crazy. The singing has apparently not aged that well, it appears. That's Poker when a woman asks him to marry her. That is only the case if the woman doesn't wait until marriage. Then I will run. Then glass will bend. And then glass will absolutely bend to my will. That's the thing. Then glass will react the exact same way, just like paper.
Songs don't work in silent films. Reviews were mixed. Hunchback and Phantom both had handsome love interests for their heroines, and even today, some people do cringe from Gwynplaine as a romantic lead.
Got closed my eyes so I could see only the real Gwynplaine. Interesting.
But that ability to confront is part of the film's power, and part of the reason its themes and images echo through film history.
You can call me Joker.
While the Joker has been the Man Who Laughs' most recognisable contribution to pop culture, it is far from the only one. William Castle's Mr. Sardonicus is an obvious descendant, and
Now that is a face not even a mother could love.
film writer Richard Coombs has pointed out the similarity to David Lynch's The Elephant Man, another human drama shot like a horror film, whose protagonist makes a memorable speech.
I am not an animal! I am a human being!
Crime novelist James Elroy incorporated the film into his book, The Black Dahlia, turned into a film by Brian De Palma in 2006. And the spirit of Gwynplaine can be identified in films from Fellini's La Strada to Tim Burton's Edward Scissorhands. As the films seem to bring together the best of horror talent, past and present, its influence
The man who cuts. The man who cuts.
would also spread into the future. Olga Baklanova is now best known as the malicious Cleopatra in Todd Browning's Freaks. Art director Charles D. Hall would go on to shape the visual aesthetic of Universal's golden age of horror, as would supervising editor Maurice Pivar. And, of course, the man responsible for Veidt's iconic appearance. The Man Who Laughs was the film that got Jack Pierce the job as head of Universal Makeup, a role that would secure his legend. More than
I mean, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense, yeah. I'm gonna watch a video talk about Johnny Somali found guilty jail time. I haven't found a good one yet, so I need to keep on the lookout for that until tomorrow, hopefully.
Phantom or Hunchback, more even than the grotesqueries of Todd Browning, The Man Who Laughs is the progenitor of the Hollywood
Like, bro, smoking with your feet. We've seen this clip before, but like, goodness gracious, smoking with your feet is crazy work.
Gothic, the first film to really exploit that blend of American entertainment and German artistry. It is here, in a film that is decidedly not horror, that Universal horror really begins. And if things had been different, its star and director might have gone on to play an even larger role in that story. Even before they had secured the rights, Universal wanted Conrad Veidt for their planned film of Dracula, with Laney as potential director. But shortly after the release of his next film, The Last Warning, shot on sets left over from the Phantom of the Opera, Laney died unexpectedly of sepsis caused by an untreated tooth infection, aged just 44. Veidt
44. Death by teeth. Kids, please take your your dental health serious. Oh my goodness.
and Philbin worked together again in Paul Feyho's theatrical horror The Last Performance, before the actor returned to Germany, concerned how his accent would be received in talking pictures.
Be what your fathers were, and obey the moon.
A few years later, he would relocate to England, this time fleeing Hitler, and would play another memorable Hollywood role in Casablanca, shortly before his death in 1943. From Chaney and Caligari through to Universal horror and beyond, The Man Who Laughs is a family tree of horror connections, unmatched by any non-horror film. But this does mean that it is most often talked about in reference to that influence rather than its own quality. Which is a shame, because in its acting, its atmosphere, its deft storytelling, and sheer entertainment value, The Man Who Laughs is nothing short of a masterpiece, and deserves to be recognised as one. Thanks for watching, and as always, our special thanks goes out to our Patreon supporters who make these longer videos.
Anyways, interesting. So that's the end of the video. In other words, see, Poker, that's why you should go to the doctor when your teeth hurt. Yeah, exactly. I get that. I get that. Rip the guy from Dark Knight 2007. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So this is essentially the movie the Joker was inspired by. Practically. Isn't it crazy Lon Chaney was meant to play Dracula as well, but died the year after Paul Laney? That's very interesting. Huh. Somebody really did not want anybody to make, maybe somebody really didn't want to have this movie out there, but maybe the one who created the story initially, who knows. Very interesting though. The movie was cursed, probably. Regardless, this is interesting. That means this movie basically inspired the Joker the way we know it. Of course, ignoring Joker 2. We don't talk about Joker 2. Joker 2 does not exist. We ignore it. That movie never got a sequel. It doesn't exist, right? That movie never got a sequel. That's all we need to know. But yeah, very interesting.